2022. So let's start with the first book, which I read, which was Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. This is a YA contemporary coming-of-age novel. It's one of the first which I read from that genre, and I gave it about 3.5 stars. Now, it was enjoyable, that's for sure. I don't think there was anything that stood out to me, but it was a fun read. The one aspect that I did like about this book was the expanded fantasy fictional universe. So this, from the title, there's a little bit about fan fiction in this novel, and one of them included this whole another Harry Potter fan fiction thing where we have a new universe and everything, and that was really nice. So we had bits and pieces of that fan fiction kind of before every chapter, and that was fun, and I liked it. And right after that, I went ahead and picked up a children's book. So I read Matilda by Roald Dahl. And this is a children's book, as I said, with a tinge of fantasy or magical realism aspect to it. I always loved the movie, and I didn't know it was actually based off a book until a couple of years ago, and I really wanted to read it. And yeah, I did enjoy it. I gave it 3.5 stars. And I think what I loved about his writing is his storytelling aspect, where it's not as if you're reading from the point of view of the main character. It's obviously in third person, and it shows it's as if somebody is telling you the story, because there's some kind of his own opinion when he's telling the story. Like, the book starts off with him explaining how some parents take care of their children and etc. But yeah, it's really, and if you enjoy middle grade, I would like this. I think I didn't like it or love it that much because, it's not for my age rating. But yeah, it was fun. And then I went ahead and picked up the second book in the Keeper of the Lost City series, which is Exile. So this is by Shannon Messenger, and this is the second book, as I said, in the Keeper of the Lost Cities. I read the first book by the same name back in 2021, and this is easily one of my top 3 favorite books, maybe even favorite book covers, because look at it, they have the most beautiful artworks, I feel like, the series. But yeah, I really liked it. This book in particular was very grief driven. 75% of the book had a lot to do with grief discussion, because this is a fantasy book. It's a middle grade fantasy, and so we have a different species and we have their own understanding of grief. And yeah, but I really did love this book. I love the characters. These are one of my most favorite characters, and I really liked it, as you can see. So then I picked up Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. I now have absolutely no plan as to what books I'm reading, but this was the only book which was left on my shelf which I hadn't read yet, so I picked it up. And I have to say, I didn't enjoy it as much as Matilda. I gave this 3.5 stars. Because I did like the songwriting aspect to it. There were some songs in the book. If you read the book or watched the movie, you would understand. And I have to say, I definitely liked it better than the movie. I don't know, the movie always creeped me out, but this was less creepy and more enjoyable. So, cheers for that. And then I finally picked up the third book in the Keeper of Lost Cities, Everblaze. And the thing about this is that I couldn't get the covers which I was buying for the rest of the series. I got the original one, which isn't that bad. It just kind of ticks me off, but it's fine. Anyway, this book especially is, I feel like, where things start to get complex and the story starts getting more and more vast, and also things start to get a lot more political. And I feel like especially in this book there is some very good mystery. I really enjoyed that part. There was really nice mysteries and I really liked that. But honestly speaking, I don't remember that much from this book. But I still enjoyed it and I gave it 4.5 stars. And then lo and behold, the fourth book in the Keep of Lost Cities, Never Seen. Now, this is the book which put me in, I think, the longest reading slump I've ever been in, which was approximately 3 months. I could not finish this book for 3 months. And that's, it's still, I don't understand because it's a lot of people's favorite book. I don't know what it was about it. It's probably because I felt like the plot, when it came to about halfway through, the plot kind of blurred. And it felt like I was reading the same thing again and again. But either way, this book, obviously, it's more complex than the past few. And there was a lot about the species which we find in this fantasy series. And we also meet a lot of new characters. I feel like if it wasn't for the reading slump, I did enjoy this a lot. It was a lot emotional, probably more, as much emotional as the second book, maybe even more. But I gave it 4 stars nonetheless because it was still a good book. And this was also the last book in the Keep of Lost Cities which I read this year. I took a break from the series. Things started to get complex, and I felt like I did because obviously it put me in a reading slump, so I just took a break and I started a new series. But this is Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This is the first book in the Lunar Chronicles series, and this is a YA science fiction. It's a bit of every genre. It's fantasy, and it's also a fairy tale retelling. If you can't tell from the book title and the cover, it's the retelling of Cinderella. And it was definitely very surprising. It was very nice. I feel like I actually wanted to read this for a year by then maybe, but I put it off for a lot of reasons because I felt like it was going to be a bit more complex, which it kind of is. But I really enjoyed it because her writing, it turns this fantasy series into a bit more magical realism, and the magic system in this particular book or the series, it's very intriguing. It's different from, I feel like, what you've read before because it deals less with the magic system, including like elements. It's not that. It's more about bioelectricity, and yeah, it's very good. And it's sci-fi. The main character herself, she's a cyborg. I love that, and I feel like it had a good amount of plot twists for just the first book, and I really enjoyed it. And I feel like now I regret it because I really wanted the second book. As I said, it has a lot of plot twists and I cannot wait to read the second book. But guess what? Obviously, I did not pick up the second book. I picked up something quite different. And then I picked up a murder mystery because why not? And I read Murder Most Unladylike by Robin Stevens. This is part of the Murder Most Unladylike series, which I'm pretty sure I'm not going to continue because it's pretty vast. But to say, I really did enjoy this book. I gave it a 4 stars, and it was definitely very unexpected. I actually didn't know anything about this book until I saw it on the shelves at Pages, and I picked it up because it seemed very interesting. Only when I read it did I realize that it actually takes place in 1934. But yeah, it was still very good. The mystery, it wasn't the most unpredictable, like the murder, obviously. If anything I liked about this book, it was the characters. One character, especially this one here, who is Daisy Wells, read from the point of view of Hazel Wong, but Daisy is also one of the main characters. She, in my opinion, was one of the most interesting characters I've ever read. She was definitely, in a way, morally grey for me. But yeah, this was, per se, my last book of the year, which I didn't think I was going to read anything after Cinder, but I bought this book and I really wanted to finish it, so I did. Actually, didn't finish it by the end. I finished it like maybe halfway through January, but it's fine. It's fine. I did, however, read a couple more digital books. So one of the books which I don't have my hands on at the moment, which I read, was Nightshade Academy by Meltori Franca. So this is the first book in the Belladonna trilogy, and it's not out. I read the beta version of that book, so I'm not going to go much into it because it was not the finalized book. But for how it was back then, I loved it so much. I absolutely fell in love with the characters. I loved the plot twist. I felt like, again, there was a lot of plot twists for one book. It was definitely unpredictable. I wasn't sure I was gonna like it as much as I love it right now, just because when I first started the book, it took me a little while to get into it, but when I did, I read it so fast, maybe in one sitting. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on the first book and the rest of the trilogy. There is a audio drama coming out, which I'm also very excited for. But yeah. And then I read Sweet and Sour by Debbie M. Florence. This was the second book which I read from her. The first being, actually forgot the name, but it was actually not a book on its own. It was actually a companion novel to another book. But that book, I liked it. Not that much, but I did enjoy it. This book, however, I loved it so much. It's a middle grade fiction, and it reminded me a lot of The Summer I Turned Pretty, but I just loved it so much. It's such a summer read, and I was living for the feels this book was giving. Really liked the characters. I feel like they were a lot more self-aware, although I feel like this book in particular has a little bit too much of miscommunication. But if it wasn't for that, or the age of the characters, I feel like if they were 2-3 years older, I feel like it would have worked out pretty well. But either way, I really did like this book, and I'm not lying, but I gave it 5 stars. Those were all the books which I read in the year of 2022. Definitely, I would say I didn't read technically as much as I read in the previous year, but I did enjoy the books that I read, although I was in a reading slump, and I'm hoping to read many more good books. And let me know if you want any reviews specifically for any books which I just mentioned, and I'll get back to you. If you liked this video, smash that like button, and also subscribe, turn on post notifications so you don't miss any videos from me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!